Real-time strategy games have given us epic battles, cunning strategies and unforgettable moments. But what if there was a game that could take all of this to the next level? And what if it was free to download? Meet Beyond All Reason, or BAR as it's known for short, a groundbreaking real-time strategy game that you might not have heard of yet, but trust me, you really need to. This isn't just another big studio AAA budget strategy game, it's a passion project powered by a devoted community, featuring jaw-dropping battles, endless creativity, and the kind of scale that dreams are made of. If you love RTS games, or even if you're just curious, get ready because Beyond All Reason could really surprise you. Born out of a desire to revive the glory days of large-scale warfare, BAR takes inspiration from some legendary RTS titles. The first born in this dynasty was the 1997 hit Total Annihilation by Cavedog. Now I've made an entire video on this game, which I'll put the link here. Whilst the game itself is outdated in many respects, it is still very much a great and fun game you can play today, especially if you mod the absolute hell out of it. This game sold over 1.5 million copies worldwide and is still have a thriving community, creating mods even today. Then came Total Annihilation Kingdoms. In my opinion at least, it was a bit of a flop. It sold over 300,000 copies, drowned in the reviews, and the tone and shift from the sci-fi galaxy-ending destruction to medieval magic confused and divided fans of the original. In 2000, after multiple transfers between parent companies, Cavedog declared bankruptcy and vanished from the market entirely. It left its mark, so the fans and many of the people who worked on Total Annihilation, including lead designer Chris Taylor, were not quite ready to let it die. Enter Gas-Powered Games, 2007 release, Supreme Commander. This game is known as the spiritual successor of Total Annihilation. Building on the same ideas and themes, Supreme Commander doubles down on large-scale warfare, strategic depth and a large diverse roster of units, and focuses on base building and resource management. The game did really well, selling over 1 million copies, and propped that up with the release of an expansion pack, Forged Alliance. In 2010, Supreme Commander 2 hit the shelves. The game received very mixed reviews and didn't hit quite the same heights as its predecessor. There were numerous official updates to the game, improving it bit by bit, and in the end, it turned out to be a pretty good game. It's worth checking out a couple of examples of the mods that you can get for both of these games. The first one is faforever.com. They've made a huge conversions for Supreme Commander Forged Alliance, and there is a mod for Supreme Commander 2 called the Revamp Expansion, which is another large overhaul. Gas-Powered Games would then be purchased by Wargaming, but would eventually close its doors in 2018. Meanwhile, former Total Annihilation and Supreme Commander program guru John Maver had been heading up another spiritual successor in the form of Uber Entertainment's 2014 Kickstarter funded project Planetary Annihilation. This game, like all of the others, focuses on epic battles, resource and construction management, but shifts the narrative from conquering individual world maps in, say, a skirmish or part of a campaign, to conquering entire planetary systems. That's right, entire planetary systems as part of one single skirmish or campaign map. Wow. The conflicts in this game are simply epic, and the scale of the units and destruction I feel have never been attempted before in real-time strategy. The vision was bold and brave, but was met with a fairly lukewarm response from the fans upon its release, also scoring just above average marks from major critics and having fairly modest sales. An expansion known as Titans was released later on to help improve the game and overall user experience. Mods are freely available within the game interface. Overall, the game is a highly ambitious, epic, graphic-intense management overload which fell short of what ultimately it could have become. You can probably see now that there is a definitive spirit to the Total Annihilation series, a growing desire for larger, more epic, more extreme wars, constantly raising the stakes, but ultimately falling short of the creator's ambition and more often than not the fan expectation. Clearly the original concept of Total Annihilation, at least, is something that truly has captured the imagination of so many people. Now we come to 2019's Beyond All Reason, a game that has been lovingly built by the people and fans of the TA series, which aims to refocus on what made the original a timeless classic, whilst learning from the successes and failures of its legacy games. Firstly, to get the game, you need to go to the official website beyondallreason.info and download the full game for free, and that's it. Take some time to browse through the extensive site and learn a bit about the game, the people involved and the two factions you'll be playing as. Speaking of which, the main two factions, Armada and Cortex, are directly based on the 1997 originals Arm and Core, with both taking centre stage once again. The developers have also provided a third faction called Legion, which you can access by going to the Experimental tab and activating them. You can only select Legion though once you're actually in the game. When you do start the game, it always starts a bit like a Windows installer program, then it loads straight into the main menu. Once you've registered, you're immediately greeted by a display of a huge amount of available online battles to either join or spectate, and trust me, there are absolutely loads. There is no epic game intro unfortunately, but who knows, maybe there will be one in the future. The interface is very clean, simple and easy to navigate. I like the use of rendered graphics of units and combat for the various backgrounds that they use. There are a few optional playstyles to choose from. The online multiplayer mode where you can either host or join a game, the skirmish mode where you can play the AI in your own custom made battles, or the scenario mode where you can try and complete a huge amount of pre-made in-game challenges. There's no campaign mode and no explanation within the game as far as I can see as to who's who and why this is all happening in the first place, but hey, who needs background anyway? The scenarios do have their own short stories or instructions attached, so you do at least get some background on why the scenario itself is there, and almost all of them are playable from either faction's perspective. There are loads of options within the settings tab to customise your game for the best experience, which is fantastic. So I naturally whacked the graphics up to ultra. There are options to add cheats, mods, experimental features that are still in development. It's absolutely worth taking the time to become accustomed to the superb level of depth offered to the user. So I set up a skirmish game to test everything out and took plenty of time to examine the massive amounts of maps that are available. I really love all the maps and the way they are presented. They are beautifully made and many of them reminiscent of the original game as well. It's just wonderful. There's plenty of diversity, open fields, islands, bridge and base assaults, the list goes on. As a wannabe world-conquering warmonger that I am, I was overjoyed to find that someone had created the map World in Flames, which is a beautiful, small-scale replica of our own little blue planet. It was absolutely perfect. Oh, did I mention there's a unit limit within the game of 32,000. I tried the in-game benchmark test and it was actually, if nothing else, quite entertaining to watch, as the benchmark pits a few thousand units against each other in close quarter combat. This should give you an idea of the settings that you need to run in order to get the game to run smoothly, and I did have to make a few adjustments to mine. I started my first skirmish and I was immediately asked to choose my own starting point by the lovely tutorial voiceover lady, and after careful consideration I chose America, or more precisely, someplace called Colorado. The user interface within the game is excellent. The minimap is in the top left hand corner, the resource bars are located at the top directly in the middle, you have the wind and tidal speed gauges to help you when utilising renewable energies, and the build tab is on the far left. What is helpful is that each construction type has its own shortcut, which helps organise and speed things up. There's also the combat tab located at the bottom, and on the far right there's another small display of in-game data, the music that is playing and who's in the game with you. Another little nugget is that the minimap not only displays you, your enemies, but also all available metal points, which is really handy. The command tab at the bottom of the screen is extensive, so you will never be short of instructions to give you units, and this adds another layer of tactical control to your game. Whilst you're not using the command tab during the gameplay, there is also an efficiency tab to let you know which of your construction units or buildings are currently idle. The game also displays this for you with the classic Z sleeping symbol appearing above them. Again, another very thoughtful addition. The animations for constructing buildings or units is pretty slick, with the traditional nano building method gradually revealing your finished structure. It's also handy that they put an ETA timer in there as well, just to help you when it comes to planning and prioritising your builds. Voiceover tutorial lady would repeatedly tell me what I can do and when I can do it, and how things worked as well, which was actually pretty handy. This is actually a great feature for the game and very helpful to noobs like me. With the original Total Annihilation, your viewpoint is fixed depending on which resolution you choose to run. However, in this game you can zoom all the way in to see the beautiful detail and wavy grass, and zoom all the way out, pretty much into space, to see the entire battlefield and every single known unit on it and any movement displayed in real time. It has a proper theatre of war feel to it. It's very good, very intuitive and very useful, as I can still control and direct all of my units pretty much from space. Also on the minimap, certain units have their own different icons to quickly relay that information visually to you. For example, the enemy commander will have a specific commander icon. Your capital ships will have their own icon, ICBMs and base defences have their own icons, not just the default red dot that we've seen across hundreds of RTS titles spanning multiple generations. It's another small feature that would help me quickly when prioritising and identifying targets. Also, another nice little detail is that your ships leave a minimap mini wake behind them, which distinguishes them on the map from any aircraft or anything else in the same area, which I think is quite cool. When you're playing, each unit will appear to have lines and circles surrounding them when you select them. This initially seems a bit confusing, but this is to differentiate each unit's various lines of sight, its radar detection range, its attack or firing range, and if the unit has a shield. Needless to say, I've followed my own flawed default RTS strategy of building up my resources first, before moving on to base defense and then on to counterattacks and further offensive play. However, due to my confusion of what each unit does and a general amount of messing around and procrastinating while looking at how pretty Colorado is, I ended up getting rushed by the AI and my commander blew up, leaving behind a huge mushroom cloud, an annihilated base, and funnily enough, a headstone, which I found quite amusing actually. So I had a word with myself, read The Art of War, started up another game, and just to save you the trouble, got on with things like an absolute boss. Once the game had totally kicked my ass, I had a good look around to see what I'd been doing, and as it turns out, the AI is a bit of a lunatic. The original Total Annihilation had 3 AI settings, easy, medium and hard, and the AI would act slightly differently depending on what terrain you loaded up. It would follow a pretty standard pattern of attack and building, but was very predictable and exploitable. The AI on bar comes with multiple settings to choose from. There is a default AI setting called Simple AI, which is a balanced AI aiming at beginners. However, there are some other settings, the first being the recommended one, known as Barbarian, which is the intended single-player AI, and then there's Raptor and Scavenger AIs to choose from. Unlike Armada and Cortex, Raptor AI may well have drawn inspiration from the legendary B-movie Starship Troopers. You start as your chosen faction, then as time passes, you are attacked by wave after wave of alien creatures. Each wave gets progressively more powerful and more of them. There's a display in the top right hand corner of the screen with a kill count and an evolution percentage, as well as a timer until the Queen attacks you. It's a fantastic alternative way of playing this game. It's a lot of fun and really quite challenging, plus the on-screen blood splattering everywhere and the horrible organic attack noises add to the immersion. Don't be fooled though, Raptors may be very vulnerable from a distance, but they still inflict plenty of damage up close and will very quickly wipe out your base should they breach your defences. It's very difficult to sustain your base as you are rushed by increasing number of units. The AI also isn't completely stupid. Whilst many of its attacks will smash you into your hardened defences, it will use aerial assaults to target your resource generators, and with a combination of both, over time it will gradually wear you down. Maybe an advanced player would say it's a walkover, I'm not convinced though, and from my research it seems people generally agree with what I'm about to say. The AI in a typical skirmish expands aggressively across the whole map, claiming as many metal patches as possible on a mixed terrain, and it keeps going until it starts encroaching into your base. The AI also seems willing to build different types of super weapons to use, including long range and experimental weapons. I've also spotted groups of AI construction units rushing around consuming the finite resources, like trees and rocks, that some maps seem to offer. The AI will also try different strategic attacks on your base. For example, despite deliberately choosing an island base to buy myself some extra time, the AI attacked me with aircraft, hovercraft, warships and land units. The attacks also became increasingly consistent and also stronger and stronger. The AI would also attack my resources and prioritise them in order to damage my base expansions. Sometimes I would be attacked by your typical cheap rush units and sometimes by a horde of aircraft. Needless to say, the AI in this may well have some exploitable traits, particularly on maps with different terrains and elevations, but generally is very formidable and challenging. A good example of this is when I was playing a skirmish against a hardened AI, and it sent a load of units to try and rush my base. When that initially failed, my radars would detect groups and groups of units starting to surround my base, but not actually going within the firing range. and once enough of them built up, it would start to attack me from all different sides of my own base. Sometimes it would be head on into my main defences, and sometimes it would try to cheekily sneak around the back and then try and attack my resources. It was actually really enjoyable and really difficult to play against the computer. There are some issues I noticed even early on in my gameplay. Like the original Total Annihilation, the AI will still gather land units on the edge of islands ready for you to destroy, and the pathfinding can be sometimes a little bit off. The AI still appears to build in a totally chaotic manner and ends up almost grinding itself to a halt as it creates super dense industrial spaces. Honestly, I don't know if this is a genuine issue with AI or it's just some sort of meta joke programmed in as a nod to the original, which, as we know, was plagued by annoying AI issues. It does certainly add that extra layer of familiarity to this. These issues, however, are more minor and they don't really affect the gameplay too much, whereas if I'm being totally honest, in the original Total Annihilation, a lot of these problems would render the AI completely helpless against a seasoned player. I would also like to add that if you delve through the settings in the game, the AIs are also customizable. So let's talk about graphics and animations. With this game, where do I even start? I think I'll just fire off a list of things I've noticed so far, and they are very impressive indeed. The environmental terrain itself is brilliantly done, with many different map types available to use immediately. Acid, asteroids, dusty moons, sandy beaches, green fields, lava fields, open green lava fields, massive oceans, lush forests, rocky canyons, and my personal favourite, heavy metal fields, to name but a few. Each map type has its own naturally occurring infinite resource tiles, such as metal patches and thermal vents, as well as finer objects like rocks and trees. I've even noticed cloud cover as you start to zoom out higher and higher. You notice birds flying around and, wait, is that a penguin? There's a great range of elevation changes along mountainous areas and shorelines as well. These have a direct impact on your unit's line of sight and attack or defensive capabilities. This will force you to modify your attacking style by land, air or sea, or just feel free to launch ICBMs. All of these terrains have huge impact on your resource gathering, your base building and offensive defensive play. This truly is a strategic masterclass by the developers. Units and unit attacks will have effects on the terrain. Units moving will leave tank treads or footprints, which is pretty nice detail. If you're using a water-based map, your ships will leave a wake behind them. The wake itself is also included in the minimap. Units will also kick up dirt as they walk across land, which is also quite neat. The water has a lovely shimmer to it and causes a believable natural distortion of units that are submerged beneath it. I would also like to add that it's a nice touch to add shadows for almost everything, including units in the ocean, and the revolutionary ability to walk underneath floating objects, or in between shipyard constructions, which is quite frankly amazing. I've even seen asteroids randomly hitting the planet, and weird and wonderful lightning storms travelling across the map and causing absolute havoc. The units themselves have their all animations, as you can imagine. Construction units will of course have their own nano building rays, but it's a nice little details that you notice, like the turbine fans on the back of the commander's pack spinning around, the yellow flashing hazard warning lights, which I don't know why they're there, but they are quite cool. Most units have headlights as well, and the static defense base turrets also have searchlights, which is really cool. Another detail I thought may have vanished from the original game was the individual unit kill counter as each unit has displayed. I couldn't initially find it, but I should never have doubted it. There it was, quietly hiding in the corner, and it even comes with its own star rating for the unit's contributions. Then there's the good stuff, such as the firing, the weapons, and the explosion graphics and animations. I really enjoy, for example, watching my different types of ships laying siege to an island covered in ground attack units, with the different firing animations all having different effects. The damage left on the ground, the smoke kicked up, and of course the massive craters and special effects as a result of launching and successfully hitting the target with an ICBM. All of these graphics and animations are complemented by the spot-on sound effects to add to that important and subtle layer of immersion and enjoyment in the moment. And then there's the music. The original game was applauded for its use of Jeremy Soul's brilliantly composed music soundtrack. The musical narrative would fall to a somber, slow, almost eerie beat and tune as the game awaited something to happen. Then it would rise to an incredible loud, boisterous and glorious level of inspirational war anthems as the player did battle. That extra layer helped Total Annihilation stand out in the golden era of RTS gaming. I'm delighted to say that Bar has managed to recreate the same epic feel with their use of music. Many of the tracks are also reminiscent or reimaginings from the original game, but there are also plenty of new tracks that add an extra layer. Contributions from all of the composers involved have managed to create an absolutely awesome score which rises and falls throughout the game. Looking at this game, I had in my head that I would talk about this from a purely nostalgic perspective, as I felt initially that the game was a community funded love letter to the 90s classic. The game is fully based on the original, absolutely no doubt about that, changing a few names here and there, but for the most part the unit names and designs all pretty much remain the same. However, this game is most definitely not a love letter. The game is also not merely a tribute to the series' origins. It's become increasingly lucrative for studios these days to pat themselves on the back for their past successes and remaster original games. Now this is totally fine, and the games they produce are very good and enjoyable. Command and Conquer and Age of Empires, for example, have recently done this, and again, this is totally fine and they did a great job. I've purchased those games and they are great to play. They're a great nostalgic dopamine overload and a genuine improvement on the title since its original release, as you would expect. However, Beyond All Reason has those qualities baked in just to start with. The game is a total reimagining of what Total Annihilation should have become. Beyond All Reason doubles down on the fundamentals of the entire series, epic battles featuring thousands of on-screen units, simple but fundamental resource management requirements, base building and technology levelling up through construction and not long-winded research. The developers create diverse terrain set pieces that force the player to change their tactical and overall strategic approach. Superbly detailed graphics and animations with smart and engaging gameplay mechanics, utilising the superb Spring 3D game engine. A wonderful soundtrack created by very talented composers to create another level of immersion. The game also has an impressive roster of units and buildings that give the player plenty of options to use on the varying types of terrains and against every type of challenge they face. All in all, the theme of the game is always moving, always building, always attacking or defending. There is no time to waste, and the player must learn to become very efficient with their actions. The player must truly understand the advantages of using certain types of units for certain situations, and the player must strive to grow their base and their army constantly. I'll conclude by saying that the game finally managed to fully achieve what fans of the original game have been waiting for many years. There's no doubt that Supreme Commander did a fantastic job, and the following mods also helped amp that up. But the following games have been pretty fun to play, but haven't quite reached the same level as we all hoped for. But Beyond All Reason, in my opinion, is the only game that has fully recaptured the essence of the original game. The level of detail, care and attention is absolutely superb, and this feels as it should, a direct sequel to Total Annihilation. The online community for this game is getting bigger and bigger all the time. The game, according to the website, has been downloaded well over 500,000 times, and the online multiplayer is where you'll truly see the maximum potential of this game being reached. As I said earlier, this is not a AAA budget game, it's a community funded project that has taken a long time and a lot of effort to create. The fact that this is free to download is truly amazing, and a game I think every RTS fan should have in their library. If, like me, you really enjoy the game, chuck a few of the King's Shiny Gold British Pound coins in to help with continuous development, future projects, or just as a reward for all the hard work. But what do you think? Do you think it's a great game? Is it a top RTS title? Please leave your thoughts in the comment section and like and subscribe. I'll see you all again soon.